Hi everyone. I just wanted to share my story. Maybe it will influence someone to do this similar path, or at least something with their life. So, I'm originally from Egypt. Originally, my family lived in Alexandria first. My dad is from pure he's from Egyptian origins, and my mom is from Greek origins. And so we first were living in Alexandria, and then after that we moved to Cairo. So I was born in the 90s, and sadly at that time the country was heading towards kind of like religious conservatism at that time. And the reason for that was in the 70s, communism was rising in Egypt, and Sadat, the former president at that time, he decided that he would fight communism using Islamist people. So he let out Islamists from prisons, and he let them attack like the communists. So, but after that, what happened is that he didn't realize like what would happen like to the country afterwards. So in the 90s, the country was heading towards very high conservative country, and all of that happened in the 70s got destroyed, and education plummeted more than ever. So when I was in high school, I was interested in science, and I was interested in logic, and I wanted to do something of that nature. But sadly, my education was lacking, because the country didn't really care about science at that time when I was in Egypt. And what ended up happening is that I graduated, and I was influenced by people to enter to mass communication. And during that time, I was bored with mass communication, and I wanted to do more with myself. I thought I could do more with myself. And programming always interested me. I thought it would be nice to kind of understand how machines work and how the code works. So I ended up learning programming. First it was so weird. So what ended up happening is that I learned lower level programming, such as x86 assembly, because I wanted to understand how actually programs run and how they work from first principles. And afterwards I decided that once I have that, I started learning how to do reverse engineering, and it was very interesting to me, because then I can understand how I was very interested in games. So I asked myself maybe I want to understand how this game actually works from its inside out. So I spent doing those things for about 3 years. During that time, 3 to 2 years. During that time, I learned almost all programming languages, and I was very efficient programmer at that time. So, I personally grew up at not a very religious family, even though still religion played a part in my family, but it was not that high as other Egyptian families. But still, it did play a part, and I always wondered. When I was growing up, I always actually used to listen to Amr Khalid, And Amr Khalid is a very famous like Islamic guy. He's not like he's not like a sheikh, but he's like kind of like a popularizer of Islam. I used to listen to Amr Khalid, and there was actually things about things about religion and how that religion explains the world and like why it's consistent with science, blah blah blah. And then afterwards, there was also like another program which was supported actually by the government, which called Al-Ilm wal-Iman, and it's about some Egyptian doctor. He's not a scientist or anything, but he was an Egyptian doctor that graduated from Cairo University, and he was saying how religion is actually very consistent with science and blah blah blah, things of that nature. So I always wondered if that's true, because like the concept of religion itself, like I was starting to doubt it, because like I was starting to see like a lot of logical contradictions. Like for example, the first contradiction that I always used to wonder about, but I didn't really ask out. Like when I used to ask out my family, they always used to say, like there are certain limitations that our mind can never understand. So don't even think about those questions, because those questions will not gonna be able to answer, because the human mind is limited. So, but I was still not convinced by this argument, because I'm actually like, from nature, I'm kind of like, I have to understand something by myself and convince myself first before actually committing myself to that, right? So what ended up happening is that like I was not convinced, and I started reading actually, because I had like the Quran memorized at that time, but I started like analyzing religion from a critical point of view, something that like many of the Muslims don't end up doing. They don't analyze the religion from a critical point of view. So afterwards, I started doing that, and I spent a lot of time reading about history of religions and like history of Christianity and Judaism, and I wanted to like see if it's kind of man-made, or if it's actually true that that this is the word of God. So first contradiction that popped in my mind is that at least Islam was written in Arabic, and there are certain words that cannot be translated in other language. It can be translated, but the flow of the words itself will be kind of different, right? It's like the flow of the language itself will be different. So I asked myself, okay, like what about some people in China? Like it will not translate very easily. So how come didn't God like created like a religion which is kind of worldwide? Like it's like a universal language, like a religion which is written in a universal language. Why didn't God do that? Why did he create religion in only in one language that certain culture can understand? And you see that everywhere in religions. You can ask yourself that same questions in all religions, actually. So afterwards, like I also saw other contradictions as well. Like, there are many, like the way actually Islam portrays hell in Quran is actually very graphic. And it doesn't make sense, since God knows and understands everything, and he knows the future, then he knows who's gonna believe in him and who's not gonna believe in him, right? So I asked myself that question. Okay, that doesn't make sense. Like, okay, like that means that actually that God, like, is evil according to like scripture, because like the reason for that is that he already understand who's gonna believe in him and who's not gonna believe in him. And is God that silly to actually like punish people for not believing in him? Is he that silly for doing that? He's not that silly for doing that, you know? Like, it doesn't make sense. It seemed to me that like the God kind of thing is kind of like more like, you know, human creation actually. Because like humans are the one that like they kind of like believe that like, okay, you know, we like if you're not in my team, then like you're hated upon. Like we like to divide, and you can see it easily in religions, especially in Islam. So at that time I decided, you know, that religions is not the way to go, and that science is the way to go. And I decided, okay, you know what, I will start working on science. And even though I didn't learn any science actually in high school, I ended up learning physics and chemistry and mathematics by myself, like from online resources, from online books and YouTube and videos and stuff like that. And I ended up learning physics. Like, I didn't know any mathematics at all, or any physics or any chemistry for that matter. So I ended up like learning about those things by myself through books. And I went from not understanding like even basic arithmetic, like I didn't even know like long division or any of that things. I started working also from the way up, like from very, very basic things to like calculus actually, and physics, like mechanics in particular. And I spent like 6 months actually doing that. So in 6 months, I was able to teach myself physics, chemistry, and mathematics, and like calculus at least. Like, so it was like from basic arithmetic to all the way to that using in 6 months, and that was actually very hard. Like, it was very hard. I had to stay for long periods of time to be able to do that, and I took exams, and like I went to Canada. So I aced the exams and I went to Canada. And then like afterwards, in my first semester, I had like exactly about like 87 average. So it was very high, and like the subject, I mean, that I didn't do as well, which was economics, I got 83, but otherwise I would have had 90 average. But anyways, during my second semester, my brother died, and I was very depressed. And I started, you know, like I started thinking, you know, that like the world, like, why am I doing this? And like, you know, I mean, like I should just probably like, you know, like enjoy life, or not enjoy life per se, but like the world is an empty place, you know. And I didn't have like, I started like lacking my purpose that I originally had. And I started thinking nihilistic thoughts by saying, you know, like there is no purpose in the world, and like, you know, why I'm doing this and stuff like that. And I was I had like deep depression for about a year. And afterwards, what helped me get out of this depression was my best friend. He's Canadian, and he helped me get outside of this depression. And like afterwards, I got on my feet thanks to my best friend. And like, and what ended up happening is that like I graduated was in mathematics, high honors, and I had like very high grades. And I came to do my master's afterwards, and like still first year I had depression, and I kind of like, it was like because I didn't like, but in that time like it was different because I missed my family. And it's been so long since I went to Egypt. It was like about 4 years, and I missed my family, and I missed Egypt. I mean, but I still couldn't go because I didn't support what the Egyptians are doing, because like homosexuals or are persecuted, and atheists are persecuted. For example, Sharif Gaber like is persecuted in Egypt, and he's suffering right now in Egypt. So I didn't support, like I didn't go there. I didn't want to go there because I don't support what they're doing. I don't support like extremist behavior like that. Like, people should believe whatever they believe in regardless, and they shouldn't be persecuted for their beliefs. If it's like either believing in God or like believing in other religions or whatever you want, or like, loving a girl or a guy, you shouldn't be persecuted for it. In my opinion, I think like all ideas, like, like the ideas of atheism should be should be open for discussion. And if Islamic people want to open ideas for like their religions, then it should be also open for discussion as well. Why do you persecute people for just saying their opinion? It doesn't make sense. You shouldn't persecute people for like their beliefs or lack of belief. Like all ideas should be out on the table, and based on people's mind, they can choose whatever they want in life. But the country should be totally distinct from religion. It should be secular, and like the country's job, or the government's job, is to make sure that like the country is moving in a forward direction, right? And people are not imposing ideas like onto each other. Not imposing as you cannot open discussion, but imposing as you have to like remove the hijab because like you kind of live in an atheist state. No, this is I agree with that, like all ideas should be open for discussions, and no matter what your belief are, like as long as you convince me, or you convince, like I convince you or you convince me, that's what it matters, right? Like people should use their mind to understand things. That's what humans are here for. We have reached our civilization, the human civilization, not through our muscles. Like actually a bear can come and attack us very easily. Like a bear can kill us in one instant. But what's different from humans, the way they're different from bears, is our brain. Like the reason like we're on top of the food chain is because of our brain, not anything else. And this is like, as development as a species, we should do that. Like the brain should be like the thing we kind of use to understand the world around us. So you shouldn't hold any ideas off, as long as they're not hurting other human beings, then that's okay. That's what matters. So currently, like, I am doing PhD, and hopefully I want to like contribute to humanity and contribute as much as I can, like in mathematics, and hopefully like also to physics as well. So I left that for a while now, but I still hoping that I catch up on that thing once I get deep in math and stuff. And the way currently the way my views are shaped is that I think like religions are kind of holding humanity off. Like we could be reaching much more heights right now, We could be like, visiting other solar systems and like exploring the world and trying to understand everything in it. But the issue with religions is that they don't allow you to do that. The issue with religions is that they actually doesn't allow critical thinking. So that's why you see that most Muslim countries are backwards, or like as not advanced as the West, because or the East, like Asian countries, because not because like they have stupid people or something like that. That's not. I don't think so, because like I mean they have like certain parts. Like for example, Egypt like was a pillar of civilization 7,000 years ago. Same thing, Persia as well, and Baghdad was also pillar of civilization, and we had like so many scientists and mathematicians living there. So the issue with religions is that they allow kind of like they accept like the world as it is, or like you have like see the issues that religion makes like the world, like you have the absolute truth. You have the absolute truth about everything. So why do we need to push ourselves anymore, or like to kind of like push our brain to understand? We don't, since we have like already the absolute truth everywhere, so we don't need to push ourselves anymore, right? So that's the issue with religion. It kind of makes the brain rusty. That's actually a saying that we have in Egypt, is that we say that like المخ بيصدي. So that's exactly what happens. So we think that we have the absolute truth, so we say, okay, like there's not gonna be any more development in science or mathematics, which is like the logic of science, because you already have everything, right? You don't need to push yourself. And like one more thing, like for example, like the religions always says that like human beings are limited. Like human beings are limited. Okay, I do agree that like we have our limitations, but it's not what like religious people are thinking. We can understand like how the world works using our brain and mathematics, and we can understand like how like we understand now, for example, like how the universe came about. So that's a huge feat. We can see like, for example, like the Hubble telescope can see like a lot of light years away. So that's still a huge feat as well. And like we're gonna go to Mars soon. Like like we extended the human life from like 40 years. There used to be people dying in like the childbirth, and we extended life like by at least 40 years. And religions actually, they kind of push progress. They push progress away, because they say that like certain things cannot be done, and that stops human beings from doing progress and stops our development as a species. For example, like genetic engineering could be big, and we could like actually like fix certain issues that we have in our like certain abnormalities. We can fix it using genetic engineering, but religious ideologies like actually prevent that from happening. And that's a huge issue. That's a huge issue that we must address. So, in my final conclusion, I think as a species, like we're like you could tell me, okay, like if we don't have religion, then like what is our guidelines? Like people will become evil, and like I always like hear like someone telling me that like like we don't have religion, so like you're gonna kill someone or something like that. Well, I mean that's not definitely the case. I mean humans developed empathy, like evolutionary wise. Like humans are, you need empathy like in order to function as a human society. And like it's only like people psychopaths like who don't have empathy for anyone or anything that they actually, yeah, they don't have any more empathy for things. So like we as human beings, we can fix like the world, and we can like evolve as a species. And for me, like religions prevent that from happening, especially Islam, because like Islam is very strict, hardcore religion, and it has like it didn't reach any age of enlightenment yet as Christianity did, but hopefully we will change like in the next few years, and we can push progress to happen. And that's it. Like, and I hope everyone enjoyed my story, and thank you for listening. And those are my views. Thank you so much.